Hi. Today is an issue about the Turkish city of Trabzon, formerly known as Trebizond. It is located relatively close to the border with Georgia on the Black Sea coast. I hope you enjoy the walk as we dive into the city in detail. Ahead on the YouTube channel there will soon be more releases from Turkey and Georgia, as well as other Russian cities. Subscribe to my channel in advance and do not miss the latest videos. And let me remind you that this walk does not pretend to be a comprehensive coverage of the city. It is just a simple display of the city of Trabzon in the eyes of the layman who drove into it as a simple tourist. As expected, we will start with a simple introduction. Trabzon is a city in Turkey, the administrative center of Trabzon, located on the Black Sea, at the mouth of the Makter River, at the foot of the forested Kalatag. The city has preserved a number of monuments of Byzantine architecture, including the former Hagia Sophia, Panegyric follows, the churches of St. Anna and St. Eugene, as well as the old city walls. In the southeast of the city is the monastery of Panegyric built into the rock. It is in great demand. The population of the city is more than 900,000 people. History of the city of Trabzon. According to Eusebius, a city called Caucasus was founded in the territory of Colchis by people from Sinop in 756 BC. Pausanias in the description of Hellas claimed that in the 362nd BC, the inhabitants of Trebizond in Arcadia, who refused to move to Megalopolis, left their homes and found refuge in the Pontic city of the same name, whose inhabitants allegedly were from their mother country. The fact that a colony was founded in Colchis by the inhabitants of a village remote from the sea seems unlikely, and, most likely, this story is an attempt to link the same names of settlements. No more. This port city was the easternmost Greek colony on the Black Sea coast of Asia Minor, and once it played an important role in trade with the Anatolian states, primarily with Irarta, and this, in turn, is already an ancient state in Western Asia. Trebizond is mentioned in the Anabasis of Xenophon as the final retreat point of 10,000 mercenaries of the defeated Persian army, the youngest son of the Persian king Cyrus the Younger. In Arrian's deeds after Alexander, it is noted that after the death of Alexander the Great, the city was granted to Eumens from Cardia, commander and personal secretary of Alexander the Great. Trebizond became part of the Pontic kingdom during the reign of Mithridates VI. After the Third Mithridatic War, the city as part of Lesser Armenia was transferred to the king of Galatia Diataru Pompey the Great, and later received the status of a free city, where there were favorable conditions for tax collection. Having become part of the Roman Empire, Trabzon became the main city of the province, and the most important commercial center and anchorage of the Roman fleet on the Black Sea, as it had a well-defended harbor and served as the starting point for the trade route from the Euphrates region to the Black Sea. The Roman-Parthian wars made the city even more significant. Trabzon served as a transshipment base during the Armenian campaign of Corabul. In 69 AD, the freedman of the last Pontic king, Polemon II, Anicetus, who was commander of the fleet before Pontus was annexed to the empire, raised an uprising in Colchis, declaring support for Vitellius in the fight against Vespasian. He attracted local tribes to his side, broke into the city, killed the local cohort, burned the Roman fleet and started piracy. Vespasian sent troops against the rebels, from whom they had to hide at the mouth of the Hab River from the local king Sedahes, who later decided to destroy Anicut and betrayed to the Romans those who sought salvation from him. The ruin of the city put an end to the prosperity of the city by the Goths in 258 AD, after their victory over Valerian, after which, nevertheless, the city continued to exist. In the 6th and 7th centuries, Trebizond was the center of an eastern Roman province under the name First Armenia. After the catastrophic events associated with the wars of the time of Emperor Heraclius, at the beginning of the medieval era, Trebizond became the main outpost of Byzantium in the east of the Black Sea. In the 7th and 8th centuries, Trebizond was part of the province of Armeniac. In the 9th to 11th centuries, the city was the center of the province of Chaldea. According to 10th century Muslim sources, Muslim merchants often visited Trebizond to purchase Byzantine silk. In 1204, Trebizond became the capital of the small Greek state of the Great Komnenos, known as the Empire of Trebizond, the last fragment of Byzantium, which in the 14th to 15th centuries was alternately a tributary of the Turks, then the Mongols, and in 1461 already fell under the onslaught of the Ottoman Turks. After the surrender of the city to the Turks, most of the houses were handed over to Turkish soldiers, the city's nobility, and a significant number of Greeks were resettled in Constantinople, where the last emperor David was originally evicted. But 2 years later, in 1463, the emperor and his entire family were put to death, and 1,500 Trebizond youths were given to the Janissaries. Around 1474, the city was visited by the legendary merchant traveler in Russia Afanasy Nikitin, who mentioned this city in his travel notes, Journey Beyond the Three Seas. Trebizond was the seat of a Greek metropolitan, an Armenian archbishop, and an Armenian unit bishop. There were more than 20 Christian churches and about 40 Muslim mosques and schools in the city. Before the bloody events of 1896, there were from 35 to 45,000 inhabitants, including up to 8,000 Greeks and 6,000 Armenians. The rest were Muslims, mostly Turks, and there were also many Persians. In 1912, almost 90,000 Muslims, almost 40,000 Greeks, and 12,000 Armenians lived in the city and the villages adjacent to it, and there were also 89 functioning Armenian churches. All of them were destroyed during the 20th century. With the outbreak of the First World War, the Greek and Armenian population was persecuted, the so-called genocide. The Greek population of the district formed self-defense units. As a result of the Trebizond operation, the city was occupied by the Russian army from April 1916 to March 1918. Then Metropolitan Chrysanthos headed the provisional Greek government. The Greek self-defense units continued to fight with the departure of the Russian army until 1923, when most of the native Orthodox Greek population was resettled in Greece. Part of today's population, being Muslim, is a native speaker of the Greek language. As you can see, the history of the city is quite rich in changes and extremely multifaceted. That is why it is interesting to walk here, absorb the history of the streets. Trabzon is a different Turkey, not touristic, calm, cozy. Beautiful architecture, oriental flavor, excellent shopping, comfortable rest, good-natured locals, everything you expect from this country is here. To be honest, it surprised us. Let's briefly tell you what to do in Trabzon, what to see, where to relax, and most importantly, why go there at all? In order to expand our horizons and see how the most conservative and little-studied part of Turkey lives, we left hospitable Georgia and spent several days in this Muslim country. What is interesting about Trabzon? We did not expect anything special from Trabzon. There was very little information about him on the web. It seemed that all that Trabzon is famous for is the Trabzonspor football club, an airport with profitable domestic flights, and a beautiful lake somewhere in the depths of the province. The more pleasant it was to be in it. This city really surprised us. Have you ever been to Istanbul? If so, it is unlikely that you did not like it. This city conquers everyone who has visited it. We think you will also appreciate Trabzon. Remember the atmosphere of a Turkish city. Colorful bazaars, locals sipping tea from tulip glasses, mosques with calls to prayer, endless shops with sweets. Now imagine that Istanbul has remained the same. But all the tourists have disappeared from it. This will be Trabzon. How did we end up in Trabzon, far from the most popular city on the Black Sea coast? For us, it all started with a desire to find interesting non-tourist places in Turkey. At this time, we lived for a short time in Georgia and fell in love with traveling to the border town. The border can be crossed on foot. It takes about 20 minutes. Then you can take a minibus and go to the nearest cities in Turkey. Here are cities such as Hapa, Rize, Trabzon. Until the last way is not close, about 4 hours. Trabzon opens from the main square. In the middle of the main square stands a monument to Ataturk, a folk hero and reformer of Turkey. In terms of popularity and frequency of mention, he can only be compared with Lenin during the years of the USSR, or, well, with Kim Jong-il. The only difference is that Ataturk was for private property and led the country towards Europeanization and improvement of the human rights of people in the country, in particular. More than once advocated for the rights of Turkish women. In essence, Ataturk's program boiled down to social democracy, social liberalism, reformism, progressivism and pro-Europeanism. Ataturk introduced the Latin script, and also separated religion from the state. Then Turkey became a secular country. Ataturk taught the Turks to wear a European costume instead of a traditional one. If you walk along the streets of the noisy streets of Trabzon, you can see how durum and doner are made at every step, or, as they say in Russia, shawarma. A large abundance of shops, signs, all this is Turkey. There are many mosques in the city, and trade takes place in the immediate vicinity of them, and this does not bother anyone. Several times a day, loud calls of the muezzin are heard through the loudspeaker in the city. Most often, the azan the muezzin does not sing live in the old-fashioned way, but plays the recording through the speakers. A couple of times you can hear live singing. Every mosque has a toilet. In the toilet, you can wash your feet for free before visiting the mosque, as well as visit the toilet room for a fee. The rooms themselves do not have toilets, only holes in the floor. This is called the Turkish toilet. There is no descent. The results of the activity can only be drained from the ladle, which is filled from the faucet nearby. There is always toilet paper in the stall, and a wet swamp due to the Islamic tradition of not using toilet paper. Previously, there was a ferry across the Black Sea from Sochi to Trabzon and vice versa. The post was closed in 2014 before the Olympics. Since it was in demand, they promised to restore it. But today it is even more of a political subtext. The situation with the weather in Trabzon is somewhat different. Summer on the Black Sea coast of Turkey is warm, but not hot. The temperature rarely exceeds 30 degrees Celsius. The sea is quite cool, and there are very few beaches along the entire coast. Therefore, swimming in Trabzon will be quite problematic. The main beaches are located in nearby resort towns such as Ordu and Samsun. I promise to make a separate issue about this city on my channel. Although Turkey is a secular state, the position of Islam and Islamic culture is very strong here. For example, it is rare to find heterogeneous companies. Usually, only ladies walk along the street, or only men, or a husband and wife. But guys with girls walk extremely rarely. Seeing companies of several guys and girls is an out-of-the-ordinary phenomenon. Trabzon is a port city that was an Eastern Greek colony even before our era. In the course of history it belonged successively to the Greeks, Mongols, Persians and Turks. After the genocide at the beginning of the 20th century, Greeks and Armenians, of which there were thousands, were slaughtered, all except those who converted to Islam. Thus, the city became purely Turkish. Fragments of an ancient fortress are visible here and there in the city. Trabzon is poorly marked on tourist maps, the terrain is mountainous, and no one speaks English, so finding the way to the sites is quite difficult. The Turks do not like the Black Sea very much, they consider it dirty and cold. Therefore, there are no beaches on the sea, the embankment is purely symbolic and unpopular with residents, and a freeway with high-quality roads and good interchanges stretches along the coast. The Turks do not disdain to fish, and in the city there are fish shops with a fresh catch. There are restaurants near the shops where you can eat fish. In the window of one such restaurant, fishermen even dive into the sea of their catch. Any Turkish city looks like one big bazaar or shopping center, if you like. Only it is not limited to any area, but occupies all the central parts of the city. Modern Turkish architecture is faceless, monotonous houses without any details. Cities would be absolutely uninteresting if it were not for mosques and shop windows. But trade and shops are very interesting. Bagels are sold from morning to night. Only tea is sold in some places, and bagels are usually eaten on the go. They sell mostly junk on the streets. Tea is drunk from small tulip-shaped cups for a Russian person. All this is very unusual because of the small portion size. Here is something like this, in general terms. Sights of Trebizond. There are a few unusual sights in Trebizond. A variety of mosques are the first thing guidebooks advise you to see. The most famous of them is Hagia Sophia. She does not look like her sister from Istanbul at all. In addition, we arrived in Trebizond at a time when the Hagia Sophia was closed for renovation. But we were not upset. There was a wonderful observation deck nearby. The heart of the city is the Maidan Square and Park. It is decorated with a statue of Ataturk, the first president of Turkey. Everything looks modern, in many ways even European. Around are numerous cafes and shops for rest. South of the city center is the old mansion of the founder of the Turkish Republic. In the 3-story pavilion, you can visit the interior and the garden. In Trebizond, shops are turned towards the sea. Cafes have set up tables right by the water. At this, Trebizond did not cease to amaze us. It would seem, what can be remarkable about an ordinary city park? But we were stuck in it for 3 hours, no less. Artificial reservoirs in which swans swim, incredible greenery, a huge number of pavilions, paved paths, fat ducks and geese, cats, even rabbits, who are not at all afraid of people. Roam the lawns. In the center of the park there is a very beautiful artificial waterfall. Well, on this we will say goodbye to you. Thank you for keeping the company on a walk. Be sure to rate this video, recommend it to your friends, and forward the video to each other. This will help the video show up better in YouTube searches. Well, as always, leave your comments under the video. Be sure to write how you liked or not the Turkish city of Trabzon. What are your memories of this city? Have you visited him? And we will definitely see you in new releases on this channel soon. Be sure to subscribe and rate. Watch issues in Russian and English. And we'll see you.
Кстати, возможно, у нас вчера девушка из такого...
Yum.